What's good? My name is Chris Styles. It's Trappin Anonymous. We got Pastor Anonymous. Shout out to the new season. Shout out to everybody that's been rocking with me, keeping this thing going. We are super excited to bring you these new episodes. I was particularly, I wanted to really do this episode for a while, especially being somebody that grew up in the church. Christianity has been a major part of my life, so I thought, so has a lot of people in my community. So if I could get sort of the pastor's perspective, that maybe we could teach a lot of people and help educate some people as far as when it comes to religion, spirituality, everything that there is to know about that. So that's why we're here. I'm happy that we're here. And I like to always jump right into my episodes. Do remember, the stories that you hear do not necessarily reflect real life. We just use these stories to educate and inform and try to keep some people off the streets. It's Trappin Anonymous. My name is Chris Styles. Let's get it. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, I'm well. I like to always jump into the episodes. I don't like to take the scenic route. When was the first time that you knew, I guess, God was real? And like, not when it was like taught to you real, like when the first time you knew, like, all right, this ain't cap.
You know what? That's an interesting question, because for me, I did grow up, Christian my whole life from the time I was, born into a Christian family. And so for me, I would say the realization when I got to a point where it was like, no, God is very real for me. I actually was a lot younger than most people would be. It definitely was around elementary school. And it was this realization that this is not what my life is supposed to look like, right? Like, so when I was born, my father was in prison doing 20 to life. Wow. My mother was a teenage mother who, just wasn't really ready to be a mother. Wow. And I was raised by my maternal grandmother. My father's entire side of the family was on the other side of the country. And somehow I still ended up being this kid that grew up in a middle class neighborhood and went to a private school. Wow. And I was being raised by, my grandmother, who's my mom. Yeah. But she was a single parent raising me and my older brothers and, doing a really good job. Right. And so for me, I think it was at the point when I realized this is not what everybody says my circumstances are supposed to be. And that's when I realized, like, nah, there's something else intervening here, that we don't get to this point by ourselves. If the situation had been just the same at face level and God not been involved, like, I could have been terminated, I could have been dead, I could have been being raised out in Cali, with my father's family, but God just really intervened in these meaningful ways that put me in positions my entire life to be well.
I know you said you were young.
I'm pretty sure that's not the time that you knew you were called to lead a congregation.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that, I was going to law school. I went to undergrad with the strong desire to be a lawyer. And the funny thing about it is I was gonna do entertainment law. Like, I already had it game planned in my mind. I'm gonna come out and get a job with Def Jam, get a job with Rockefeller. I'm gonna be doing this so I can mix law and music, like, which at the time were like just everything for me. And I was already in the middle of like taking LSAT prep classes. I was doing extremely well. And then my senior year, I had an accident on a Sunday morning headed to campus where an 18-wheeler ran my car over while I was inside of it. Mack truck.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah, so it's Sunday morning, I'm headed to campus to go see a play, ironically. It wasn't raining, but it had been raining earlier that morning. It was a 4-car pileup in front of me. I see the pileup. I check my side view mirror. It's all clear. I get over, I put on my signal and everything. But when I get over, it was a huge divot in the road. And so because it had been raining early, it was like a lake. I ended up hydroplaning across 4 lanes, right underneath a Mack truck. Like I was literally underneath it, like in the first Fast and Furious movie.
I remember when they went under the...
Yes. So the front of my car hit the inside tires. It sucked the car in, crushed the whole front of the car. The dashboard collapsed on me. But then because the wheels on the bus go round and round, it spit the car out. And the back tires ran the joint over while I was inside of it. I was trapped in the car for like an hour and 45 minutes, had to be airlifted to the hospital, like all manner of drama. But there was this moment, blood is everywhere. I'm coughing up blood, the airbags deployed. And there was this moment where I was in the car and I was just like pissed. To be honest, I was just so mad. Like, F Atlanta, Atlanta trying to kill me. I hate it here. Like, I was just so tight. And all of a sudden the car just got really calm. Like just really peaceful. And the only way I could describe it is it felt like water. Like when you're, you know, if you're in a pool and you go under and you see your friends, y'all trying to take pictures and laugh and talk. That's what it felt like. Like everything was slow. And then I could feel the presence of God behind me in the car, but they had already put a neck brace on me, so I couldn't turn around. And then God just said to me, this happened because you wouldn't be still. I've been trying to talk to you and you just wouldn't slow down. And then God just said to me, you're gonna preach. And you're gonna say things to people that other people can't say, and you're gonna reach people that other people can't reach. But the thing that always sticks with me, like, you know, 20 years later, is God said to me, and you don't have to be afraid because I'm gonna go with you. And like repeated that one phrase to me like 4 times in the car. You don't have to be afraid because I'm gonna be with you. And I got out the car. Like they finally got me out with the jaws of life, airlifted to the hospital. I didn't spend a single night in the hospital. I have literally one tiny scar from the accident. Nobody can ever tell where it is.
Well, I mean, I would have probably been getting paid, but if I would have found some kind of injury during that.
Georgia is a no-fault state, and technically, because I went underneath this man's truck, it could have been one of them things where they were like, well, hell, you put him in danger.
It's funny how, here I am, I'm thinking about a come up, right? But it's funny how that's the moment that transitions everything for you, like that time, like that's worth more than money, right? So it's just like, it's interesting the times that God uses, because I never think that God is gonna use the opportunity when we're living life, right? When we're on the top of the world, because we think it's us, you know, or we might be full of ourselves, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But when those moments where we hit those lows, is like, it's that calming thing that you spoke about. It's just like, you can hear so clear, and like nothing else could but God, right? Like, I need a miracle kind of situation to kind of like, you know, believe. What about a time you feel like after this transpired, where you question God again? Maybe this is cap.
Nah, you know what? The time where after you ask me questions that's gonna make it seem like my responses are mad dramatic on purpose, but it's not. It's just like the reality. Now, I also feel like I'm not Pastor Anonymous, because some people right away gonna know it's me, but I'm cool with that. When my brother died, so my youngest brother died in 2014, and he had a massive asthma attack. He had asthma since he was a baby. And just one night, you know, he had been sick that week, but thought he had a cold. He had went to work that same day at Adidas, down south, worked in the mall, had just got a promotion, came home from work that day, wasn't feeling well, could not breathe, called 911, went outside on his porch to wait for them, and died. You know, he was 19 years old, and I was 15 when he was born, so he was the baby, you know, like he was everything. And I remember that night, when he died. Oh, Chris, you're a jerk for even asking me that. But I remember the night he died. I was the first person who got the call. And so I remember being like, yo, how am I gonna call my mother and my sister and tell them that he is dead? And I remember that night, my sons were in their room sleeping. It's the middle of the night, and I remember like wailing into my pillow, like screaming. And the thing I remember saying was, yo, I gave you my whole life. You couldn't take care of my family. And that was real. I think like those are the vulnerabilities of even like pastors that sometimes people don't get. Like we go through the same stuff everybody else go through. Like ain't no special passes, ain't no get out of jail free cards. It's not, oh, grief is gonna skip you. You know, all of that like, oh, favor is real and it's on me. Yeah, you could have favor and still be going through stuff, right? Favor means you're not gonna struggle alone. It don't mean you're not gonna struggle. And so for me, it wasn't a question of doubting God about whether or not God was real. It was a question about theodicy, which speaks about the goodness of God. Like, can God be good in the midst of all this bad stuff happening around me? And for me, I always knew that the answer was yes, but I was angry. Like, I was real angry. I legit felt like I accepted my call at 21 and pretty much like that was it. I taught sixth grade for a year and I've been a pastor. Like that's it. I taught sixth grade for a year and then I've been a pastor. And so for me, it was like, I've made all of these crazy sacrifices. I told you, I was planning on going to law school based on like, you know, my grades and what I was doing on that, like in the LSAT prep class. I was definitely gonna go like top 5 law schools probably.
I stopped everything for this.
Yeah. And I was like, bro, like really, Jesus? Like this is what we doing?
So now, I mean, look at you. You know, I could go on for days about how I've even watched you grow, and I'm sure many of the people in your life are just like, wow, like just look at you being this voice, this almost pillar for so many people. And being on that stage, how do you separate this is me and this is God? So I say that in a way that sometimes when you're on that stage, you start to feel full of yourself. You start to feel those moments of, look at me. You know, you could sort of feel, kind of get lost in your own sauce. You know, how do you discern from like, all right, let me just kind of bring it down a little bit. Let me not get all caught up in sort of the hype of things. Because I could imagine that happens to a lot of preachers.
It certainly happens, right? Like you definitely know people, you see it happen. It's not just the TV preachers, like it happens, right?
With the Rolls Royces.
Yeah, it's not just that. It happens with regular people, regular degulars. Like you went to school with them, you went to grad school with them, you see it happen. For me, it is an intentionality about humility that is rooted in one of the scariest scriptures for me in the Bible. So there's this one thing in the Bible where it's talking about Saul. Saul was the king of Israel before David, right? But there's this point where it says, and the Spirit of the Lord left him. And for me, it is this constant reminder that like the anointing on your life and the favor that is on your life is not from you. It has nothing to do with you. Like it really is a gift from God. It is the hand of God being on you. And the minute you start to take credit for something God did, that could be you. And the Spirit of the Lord left him, and the Spirit of the Lord left her. And, you know, I don't think it's the same thing as like you out on the stage, Chris, you throwing parties, you the promoter, you the hype man, you out there doing your thing, right? Yeah. The people are responding to you in the energy you're bringing. Right. When I am up preaching, there's an intentionality about the fact that what I need and want the people to respond to is the way I am explaining the word of God to them. And so you've heard me preach before. That's why for me it's really important that I do so much through stories, because I think stories connect people.
Absolutely.
And I'm scared to be in a situation where, yo, you thought this was you? Come here, let me show you that this is not you. And
so you're always operating from that place of, all right.
Well, no, it's a healthy respect. You know what I mean? It's not fear, but it is, God loved Saul. Like he let Saul be the first king. He didn't want the children of Israel to have a king at all. Like at first, when you see it play out in the Bible, God is like, what y'all need a king for? Why y'all trying to be like the rest of these ninjas? But they like, oh, we need a king. Like, we want somebody to be in charge of us. They pick Saul, and he's good for a minute, and then he's not. And a huge part of the thing that messed him up was obedience, ego, failure to heed wise advice. And so I always think about those kind of things, right? Like at what point I can't listen to nobody anymore, right? Like nobody could check me. Who gonna check me, boo? Right? Like now nobody can check me. I have like amazing mentors. And at the end of the day, if somebody can't be like, yo, your slip is showing,
Yeah.
then you shouldn't be outside, right? If you don't want nobody to tell you,
Yeah.
you know, hey, you split the back of your pants, like, bro, you shouldn't even be outside.
It's funny you talk about mentors. I remember watching you preach one time, and I sort of felt like it was your moment. And then in that moment, I see sort of someone else kind of try to take over that moment. And that resonates with me because I was the young kid in the scene, on the mic, paying homage to the older people, always humble, always told that this is your time, this is your chance, this is your opportunity. I'm stepping away. I'm not touching this no more. This is all you. They see me kind of take it to a height, and they're like, oh, but wait, let me get some of that. Maybe I could last another year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You know what I mean? And I dealt with that literally the larger part of my hosting career, was just always people trying to sort of take credit for my work. People sort of try to not hand it off to me, not, you know, give me my proper due, because it was like, nah, I'm not ready to let go. I could imagine what it feels like for that person. I just only know what it felt like for me in that moment. And there was a time I was up there and I was watching, and I said, wow, I know what that feels like. So I don't know if I felt that for you or if I felt that for me.
It hurt you to see me dealing with it?
It hurt me to see you deal with it.
No, I think for me, I have had amazing mentors. I'm grateful for the space and the opportunities to grow and to preach and to minister. And you don't get that in any arena unless somebody holds the door open for you, right? Like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, somebody got to hold the door. Somebody got to vouch for you. Somebody has to say, nah, you should hear her, she's dope. You know, no, you should invite them. Like, it's gonna be live, right? And then I think to myself, a good friend of mine always says, you gotta be careful because one day you'll pastor yourself. And I reflect on that in terms of what it means for me to sort of check my ego in those moments. In the moments where I'm feeling like, yo, I could do this. I don't necessarily need help, or I don't need your guidance anymore. Take your hand off of it. And then I'm like, nah, even when it's you, like even when you sit in the main seat, even when you sign the checks, we need help. We need somebody to remind us, like, you can't do this by yourself. Sometimes you need somebody to remind you to go sit down somewhere. Like, you need somebody, and we've had this conversation. Sometimes you need somebody to remind you, everything don't need a response. You know, you don't always got to be out here fighting for everything. Some stuff ought to at least feel easy, right? Not that you didn't work for it, not that you didn't study for it, not that you didn't pursue it and put in the hours, but certain fights are like you trying to hold on to something that's not even for you anymore. And I think, you know, mentors and good leadership will help you to recognize that.
Yep.
But at different times, it'll also help you to know when it's time to step away. You know, I can remember when I got my first full-time gig where I am now, I had to leave a church to come here. And I left that church because my mentor told me straight up and down, she loved me, like salt of the earth, big sister, that's, you know, the homie. I remember her saying to me, you gotta leave because it's nowhere for you to grow here except to my spot, and you can't have it.
Wow.
And that was a real honest conversation.
Tell me that.
No. So I'm saying, like, I appreciated it. It was a real honest, like, she told me, like, you are growing. You need to keep growing. In order to grow, you're going to have to preach. And there's nowhere for you to go here. There is no more upward mobility. The only spot you could get here is mine. I'm not leaving yet.
I ain't going nowhere.
I'm not going nowhere. And so, like, that's, you know, like, that was, for me, that was wisdom. Like, yeah, don't let me stay in a place that you know nothing is going to come from it. You know, I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to learn.
I was young, you know?
Yeah.
I was young. And only thing that I could see was you don't want me to be. You don't want me to show them.
You scared of me.
You terrified.
Yeah.
Scared.
You see me coming.
You see me. And in that moment, again, you digressed. I watched you digress. And I was like, wow. I don't know what that meant. Especially at that time too, I was like, I don't know what that meant. Because me, I just always came from, because everything that I got, I had to fight. I had to always go and get my hands dirty.
And I guess, like, this is it, right? Like, for me, and, you know, different strokes, different folks, right? Like, you know, we take it up the street, you never know how you're gonna get it. But for me, I've always felt like, you know, it's a cliche, we hear it said all the time, but what God has for you is for you. And I have always felt like that's a pattern in my life, that regardless of what was going on or what was being said or who was involved, God was going to orchestrate for me to be in the places and spaces I needed to be in. Whether it was I needed to be in a certain spot so I could hear a conversation being had, that was going to teach me something about how to move in the future. Whether it was I was somewhere so I could learn something, so I knew how to navigate myself and grow to another level. But I just have always felt like, can't nobody stop what God has.
I got you ministering to me now. To switch gears, I know this is probably like, what I could imagine would be like one of the hardest conversations to have in your position. Thoughts on gay marriage?
Oh, it's not hard for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not hard for me at all. I believe that for far too long, people have used the Bible as a tool of oppression and condemnation. The scriptures in the Bible that most pastors use to condemn homosexuality are not really about homosexuality. When you go back to the original language and stuff, when the stories behind these texts are primarily about hospitality, how you treat strangers, right? So, yeah, you know, don't lie with a man as one lies with a woman, is because what used to happen was visitors would come into the town and the men of that town would rape them to prove dominance. So it really was on some like warfare type stuff. Like, you, this our hood, you're not allowed here.
Straight
the
up.
way we gonna let you know we really run this is we don't even want your wife. Like, your daughters are safe. It's you.
Wow.
Right? Because there are certain ways that people can violate you, and that has nothing to do with sexuality. Rape is about power and control.
Right.
And so many of these scriptures have been taken out of context and used to reinforce other agendas. So I personally do not have an issue with gay marriage at all. I feel like, you know, I have friends who are same gender loving, who are married, and a number of them are in a lot more healthier relationships than, you know, heterosexual friends I have. And so for me, I think it really comes down to, are you committed to honoring God and honoring your spouse, your partner, whatever, right? I also really flow hard in, you know, the Bible says, you know, there's no condemnation in Jesus Christ, that nothing can separate you from the love of Christ Jesus, neither heights nor depths, angels nor demons, like nothing. Like, you could be everything bad that everybody says you are. I could be everything bad that everybody says I am. And the Bible says that that still can't separate me from Jesus loving me. And so for me, you know, and again, you know, it might be controversial, but it's not hard for me to talk about. For me, I'm willing to have a conversation with Jesus like, damn, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because it would always be, I erred on love. I'm not gonna tell somebody, you imagine, and I think, you know, when we grow up in certain environments like the neighborhood we grew up in, around the people we grew up around, when you hear certain language used hella freely that, you know, we know is demeaning and derogatory, but it just is what it is. When you match that with, because of who I am in a community, I'm never going to be the reason why somebody thinks God can't love them or God doesn't love them.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
But again, I told you, for me, stuff is about context, right? I told you, we started this off. My father did 20 to life. He got out of prison when I was 22 years old. Like the spring semester that I was graduating from college, that's when he was released from prison. He took someone's life. Not he was accused of. He did it. He definitely did it. But my father was saved. You know, like he accepted Christ and tried to live right and was loving and kind and generous. But he was also a drug addict. You know, I believe that there is this tension in who we are as people that other people can't accept, that God understands. Like, you're not always gonna get it right. You're not always gonna say the right thing, do the right thing. But I also think the things that we judge one another for don't mean nothing to God. I think the fact that, like, some of us are unkind to our children and talk to them any old kind of way, or, you know, you'll curse a sibling out at the drop of a dime. You talk about your neighbors bad, you know, you won't help people when you are in a position to help them. I think that gets judged more harshly than whether or not two consenting adults who are same gender loving choose to be with each other. So that's just me.
How do
you sort of deal with people that believe in other things, other religions, maybe atheists? I'm sure that conversation happens a lot. A lot of people feel like they need convincing, right? You gotta, like, I feel like Christianity, especially like a pastor, it's like sort of your job to convince people of the word and Jesus Christ, or is it to affirm what they already believe? How do you have those conversations with people from other religions, and two, is your job to convince people? Like,
so I'm gonna answer the second one first.
Okay, cool.
It's not my job to convince anybody of anything. The Bible's, you know, in the Bible, Jesus says, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me, right? So my job is to do the lifting. I'm the person that points to the person, right? Like, not me. Look right there, right? So I'm the sign, like I'm the arrow. I could tell you all day, it's restaurants. I could tell you all day, we're not doing like free commercials, but I could be telling you, yo, you gotta go here. You gotta go here. It's dope. They got a dope happy hour. The scene is popping. They got a DJ. It's lit. I can say, go. You like, nah, I'm good. Like, I just, you know, I looked online at Yelp. It just don't look like my scene. I'm telling you, Chris, I'm telling you, like, nah, it's dope, man. You want this. Nah. And then I'm telling you, son, it's free on Thursdays. Like, go. They trying to build business. You gonna get a free meal and a drink Thursdays. Go. I work late on Thursdays, right? Bro, that's you. I'ma still be there. Like, we still gonna eat good and drink good and be merry. You missed it.
Yeah.
Right? My job is to help as many people as possible not miss it. Right? That's my job. I want to put you onto something dope. It's like, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a glitch on the UGG website. No jokes, this is real talk. There was a glitch on the UGG website. I ended up getting like 2 pair, like, that's when the like winter Uggs were like a big deal. Like those duck hunter looking ones. And I ended up getting them in like 2 different colors. Immediately I started texting all my people, yo, go now. They gonna figure it out. I already got the order confirmation. Like, it's legit, go now. Some of my people copped them. We was all walking around that winter.
Ducks?
Yes. But it was a bunch of other people that was like, I was at work. I saw your text message too late. By the time I tried, it was too late. Maybe it'll happen again.
Maybe.
You know, like for that. When it comes to other faiths and how I deal with those conversations, I'm really respectful. So like I said, my father became Christian, but when I was born, he was Muslim. So, you know, because I'm Pastor Anonymous, I'm not gonna say my name, but my name is an Islamic name, it's Arabic. And so I grew up in a family of blended faiths, right? So I grew up with Muslim cousins. My birth mom is Muslim. Matter of fact, that mosque in Bushwick, the green and white one, like mad big one, I was like Muslim on the weekends practically. We would go there every other weekend.
So you was exposed to another religion?
I was exposed to other faiths growing up. And what I came to realize was, for me, Jesus is the highest revelation of God.
Okay.
But I don't dismiss other people's faiths. One of the things that I really try to do is see where can I recognize Christian principles in this person's faith? Because at least that puts me in the space to honor it, right? Like, now, am I about to get down with like, oh, you want some like Satanism type stuff? Boo, you can't sit with us. But in general, like, oh, you practice Buddhism, you know, you're Muslim, you're Jewish. Like, I can respect that. Now, I have a lot of respect for the Islamic faith, just on a basic principle. Most Muslims honor Jesus better than the average Christian. Like, there's a reverence that they have.
The Christianity is the only religion that lacks discipline, for real.
But here's the thing, it's because at a certain point, I think people have misconstrued grace. Right, this idea of like, just like I said earlier, nothing can separate you. And so if nothing can separate you, then I could do whatever I want to do. The issue is, the Bible also says, like, do not be deceived, God will not be mocked. Right, so it's a difference between stuff that you are genuinely struggling with, right? Like, let's say, not you, somebody else, but let's say you're genuinely struggling with alcoholism, right? The Bible doesn't say anything about not drinking. It talks of everything in excess is a problem, right? So drinking is not the issue. It's you being drunk, falling out the club. You can't get home safe. You driving, even though you should have called an Uber, right? Like, that's where it turns into like, this is now inappropriate and therefore sinful behavior because it's selfish and jeopardizes the community and saddens the heart of God, right? At that point, it's like, we end up lacking discipline because you think grace is going to end up covering everything. But at a certain point, there's consequences for your actions. Like when you were a teenager or a child dealing with your parents, there are certain things they're going to let slide. Like, all right, cool. Don't let this happen again. Right? But you keep playing the same thing. And sometimes people think they're being punished, and what they fail to realize is you're not being punished for like your actions or your behavior. God is allowing you to deal with the consequences that you set up.
That is so true. Like, anything that I felt like I was out of bounds with or doing, I was literally, the consequences was there. I just didn't care until the consequences reached a point where I had to care.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So my threshold for consequences was superseded. You know what I mean? So a lot of people think, I don't know, some people are like getting away. It's like, you don't get away with anything. Nobody's getting away with anything.
It's literally like, yo, sometimes you do get a pass though. Like, sometimes you do.
Sometimes you cheat death.
Yeah.
But when that pass comes and you don't learn from it, that's the issue. Like, can you recognize that this was grace? Can you recognize that this was your past, this was your do-over? Or are you the person that's like, nah, we out here. Like, this is what we do. I do this. And then next thing you know, you dealing with some ugly situation that you never thought you would be in.
Any regrets during your pastoral journey?
Any regrets? Yeah, I do. It's not a big deal. It's not as dramatic as the other ones.
I'm not looking for drama.
Okay, good. So, my younger brother, shout out to N.O. Now I'm just giving it up.
Why'd you just shout the person out?
That's not their real name, so we'll see. But I already told like so much stuff that's like self-disclosure. If the people know me, they know me. Like, it is what it is. But my younger brother played at the Garden for like AAU when he was like in 6th grade or something. And I remember I ended up seeing the pictures on Facebook. And so I called him and was like, yo, you played at the Garden? And he was like, yeah. I was like, bro, why you didn't call me? You didn't tell me. And he was like, I didn't think you was gonna be able to come. And I was like, why? Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you never come to my games anymore because you're always working. Wow. And that for me immediately changed, like, it changed who I wanted to be in ministry. Like, I remember that feeling, and I never wanted to feel like that again, like where I got to the point where the church and work and ministry was so consuming that my family didn't even think I would be there.
When I talk about my regrets, I don't have a lot. Mm-hmm. One of my regrets was that I did not spend more time with my family. Mm-hmm. Always touring, always on the road, always out, always partying, I did not spend enough time with the people that love me.
Yeah.
And I always say this, I don't think greatness and good go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I think you gotta cut something off. And it requires that, because you gotta outperform people in the world, right? To be where you are, think about all the people you've outperformed.
Well, or the other perspective is you gotta set boundaries early in life that allow the time that you have to be so laser focused that you can't be anything but great, because I only got this much time to do this right now, right? So before we started, we kicked the 2 little dudes out, but after my brother said that to me, my goal was to make sure nobody in my family felt like that anymore. And so from my siblings to my sons to my parents, like, everybody will tell you, if they call my jack, unless I'm sleeping, I'm answering. Unless I'm sleeping or I'm preaching, like literally I'm in the pulpit. If they call and I'm in service, I'm normally answering or at least texting back right away, are you okay? Because I just never want anybody to feel like I chose this over them, particularly when it came down to, like, once I became a mother, right? Like, I have kids, and it's like, I don't want them to feel like they lost me to the church, because ultimately I was very aware that might mean that they might walk away from the church out of resentment.
My name is Chris Styles. This is Trappin Anonymous. Let's get it.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Trappin Anonymous. Stay tuned for scenes from our next episode, Pastor Anonymous, Part 2.
Another pastor that's in New York, I think my father had asked him, like, are you guys doing a holiday service or whatever? And I mean, in the moment, I couldn't tell the difference between this dude and like somebody on the block. You know what I'm saying? He's like, of course I'm doing morning, afternoon, evening. I gotta get mine.
What? They be having morning service, afternoon service, the interim service,
right,
evening service. I'm not even thinking like, okay, this is just a money maker.
For some, you know what I'm saying? Some places, and the thing is also we have to understand is that wherever humans are, there's gonna be human error.